Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint's Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. You've heard their point, now listen to the counterpoint.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. We are coming at you on September 1st, 2021, about 8 months into this just crazy journey of a Biden administration. If I happen to be looking at my watch occasionally, it's because I'm wondering if the time's just about up on like I don't usually even wear a watch, but unlike Biden, I'm actually living in the 21st century.
I was just wondering if Biden suddenly became your hero and mentor or something.
I'm buying his art. I'm gonna go buy some of his art.
Well, before we get into the show, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon the Word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And in our upper right-hand corner, we have a special guest today, Larry Sharp of the Sharp Way, and a former candidate for New York governor as a libertarian. And my name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. And Tim Everett, he's off today. I think he may be a little under the weather, so get well, Tim. And let's jump into the show. So we have a lot of interesting stuff, but since we have Larry on today, wanted to talk a little bit about the fallout of some of these governors. I mean, we see governors now, they were the heroes last year at the beginning of this whole COVID pandemic, but now they seem to be, COVID may be more fatal to them than it is to their political careers than it has been just as a general disease. And this is something pretty crazy. I mean, essentially, Cuomo had some problems where he was shoving old folks into
that wasn't his problem. We let him go for that one.
Exactly. That should have been the problem.
That should have been the problem. That wasn't his problem.
Yes.
His problem was he couldn't stop grabbing troopers' butts. That was his problem. But the killing people, we were fine with that. We were good with that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Imagine that.
Although he certainly
kill them old folks is no problem.
No problem. Yeah. Kill old people, no worries. Grab a trooper's butt, you're gone. You are out of here.
Yes.
Hey,
with you.
Before that, though, everybody was just a self-declared homosexual, I thought.
Absolutely. Oh, my God, we were all over him. People outside the governor's mansion, serenading him with flowers.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, it couldn't have been that good, because think about this. There were 11 women who he harassed and got angry at him, right, and got mad.
Yes.
Now, here's the hard part. You're the most powerful person in the state of New York. You have a mansion. And not one of them were like, okay, what kind of guy are you? I mean, that guy has no game. No game. If I had a mansion, I would have got one out of the 11 to go, yeah, okay. But not one did. They were all like, no, you got a mansion. And they all said no. Wow, you have no game. Wow, that's the most embarrassing part. Where were the ones who said yes? None.
Well, you know what's funny, though, is that so many were coming out of the woodwork advertising themselves as Cuomosexuals, but boy, when the behind closed doors, was false advertising.
Not at all. He's doing something wrong. That guy needs to go to one of them pickup artist shows or something. He's got to go there. He's got to get some training. Guy's got no game.
Yeah. But this whole thing about Cuomo and some of these governors, I mean, it just showed the hypocrisy in the media,
Yes.
You see, I mean, okay, look at this guy. He killed his policies directly contributed to the death of 15,000 people, old people.
That is correct.
Well, no big deal. That's no big deal. We're gonna serenade this man. We're gonna fawn all over this man. We're gonna give him an Emmy, and oh man, he's so wonderful. He could be our next president.
Yes.
And then you come to find out all of this crap. And
but that's my problem.
Yes. And worse yet, you're absolutely correct. We don't go after him for the 15,000 old folks that dead. We go after him because he grabbed somebody's butt or he grabbed somebody's breast. He shouldn't be doing that. But
correct.
Look at the travesty this man caused with these old folks in these nursing homes. And
yes.
And it's no big deal. As a matter of fact, I think the U.S. Justice Department just said we're going to close down the investigation.
let me tell you what I think it is. This is my feeling, because you're totally correct, Leon. What I believe it is if you go down the nursing home deaths, a whole lot of people are going to get in trouble.
Yes.
Not just in New York State, but in your state too, Leon, and others. There's a lot of governors going to get in trouble if they walk down that road. So they said, wait a minute, forget that. Smoke grenade. Don't look over there. Look over here. And when they got him over here, what does that mean? All of a sudden now, only he gets in trouble. So the system is happy to get him on that, because then only he gets in trouble. Everyone else, their problems are forgotten about. So I think this is a self-preservation piece.
Well, you might be right, because I think Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan have issues. Murphy in New Jersey have issues.
Yes.
The person in Minnesota have issues. And the guy in Washington State, right north of us here, also have some issues. So they're all Democrats. They're all Democrats. So you might be right. It's a valid point.
They're protecting themselves. Absolutely.
Yes.
So, but let me go to the other piece though, which drives me crazy too, which is now all of a sudden they always knew how bad he was. Now they're all jumping on board. What a terrible guy he was. Last month, you were ready to service him in the backyard. Now all of a sudden, he's the horriblest person in the world. And how could you possibly? Like, you didn't know that was happening. Like, you had no idea, right? I knew it. I was telling people 4 years ago, what a bad... Most of the people were saying things like Cuomo's corrupt. But if you see what I spoke about earlier about him, I always said the same thing. Not that he's corrupt. He's a bad person.
Yes.
I always said that he's a bad human being. I said he has no friends. People laughed at me. I said his dog doesn't even like him. People laughed at me. But he abandoned his dog. When he left, yes, he literally abandoned his dog. I wasn't joking. I said even his dog doesn't love him. He's not a good person. Dogs knew he was bad, and it was true. And now all of a sudden you tell me you didn't know when I knew? They knew.
You'd almost think he was, managing the fleeing of Afghanistan. The way, like
almost. No. At least one thing I'll give Biden, and I'm not a Biden fan, but I will give Biden something. At least Biden is standing forward and saying, yes, my responsibility. I'll give him that. I want to give credit where credit is due. Again, I'm not a Biden fan, but I think no one is all bad except maybe Cuomo. But no one else is all bad. So I will give Biden credit where credit is due. He's not just blaming others. At least he's standing there taking the slings and arrows. I will give him that. Cuomo wouldn't do that. When Cuomo left, he was still like, all you people are stupid. You'll see I'll be back. I will rule you one day. Cuomo was still that way to the end. At least Biden was like, yeah, it's my fault. I messed up. I'll give him that.
Even though I take your point, but Joe Biden came out just the other day and say he was instructed to do this and instructed to do that, he was talking about calling on reporters and then something else he was talking about, but he was instructed to do this. So it makes me wonder, even though he's taking responsibility in some places and that kind of stuff,
places,
who the hell is instructing him to take the responsibility is what I'm wondering. Who is president of the United States? I'm wondering that somebody have to instruct him,
I think this is the point that I'll bring up about Afghanistan. Do I think Trump would have done it better? I do. Yeah. Do I think he would still would have had problems? I do. I think Trump would have also had trouble, and two major reasons why. The bureaucracy of the state does not want to leave, and the military-industrial complex and all the dollars behind it don't want to leave. So there was going to be bureaucratic sabotage no matter what. The problem with Biden versus Trump is Trump had less of those insiders in his cabinet. So there would have been less sabotage.
Yes.
Biden's cabinet is full of them.
Yeah.
So there was tons of sabotage, right? And Biden didn't even know any better. And I'm gonna give Trump credit and Biden credit in this one. Obama completely collapsed when it came to getting out of Afghanistan. Bush didn't want to get out, so he was fine. So even though I hate the fact that he got us in, at least he didn't want out. Obama actually wanted out and said he would come out, but the military-industrial complex completely played him, and he completely failed to step above them and say no. They actually delayed Trump, but Trump at least at the end was like, no, we're going out. We're out. So they did push him back. Trump wanted out immediately. The pressure of the military-industrial complex did delay Trump, but at least he said, no, finally, we're getting out, which is the right answer to get out. The problem, I think I'm going to give Biden credit for is he didn't back out. He actually followed what Trump has started. He actually finished it. So again, I'll give him some credit for that. However, to your point, Leon, that's not enough to make it okay, right? It's not, I'm not giving 100% he sucks. I'm saying it's 98% he sucks. That's all I'm saying. I'm giving him a 2%. I'm trying to give people credit where credit is due. That's all.
Well, the thing is though, I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to sort of highlight the one point that hopefully this illustrates to both Democrats and Republicans that, they think that we can manage the world, I guess, and look at the debacle that we've created here in Afghanistan to the point where the country might be much worse than when we actually came in there as we leave. It's, absolutely crazy. I mean, we've armed them, as we leave. And so we've made it safer for them to do whatever they're going to do here. And maybe they have an ally in China, too, as they go forward as well. Yeah. So this is just a crazy
But I would go one step further than that. The arming part, I don't actually care as much about, because they can always become drug lords and buy more stuff, right? So the arming part I actually don't care much about. What I care about is we've trained them. That's more important, right? Yes. Now they have soldiers who, one, know how to fight, know combat tactics, have fought against the best military on the planet, and have not run. So now we have trained soldiers who will stand and fight against other trained soldiers. The equipment they can buy from the Chinese or buy from the Russians, that part isn't a big deal to me. But if you actually have Taliban soldiers who will stand and fight, and they will, clearly the people we trained didn't, but the people who fought against us, that was their training. They fought in the field against us and survived and took massive casualties and kept coming. We now have an actual army in Afghanistan, not the one we trained, the Taliban, who are a serious army with now leadership who's seen this. And that leadership will be there for at least 30 years. So they have 30 years of leaders who know how to fight, who've seen victory, who are not afraid of the battlefield. That's a problem.
Well, and, but that's the whole point of the broader thing of this, the central planning issue. They look at this debacle, and I mean, will anybody learn anything from it? The idea that, we just had this crazy debacle, and then they want to come home and focus on managing the rest of our lives for us. Sorry, Leon, you go ahead, jump in.
No, I was not going to make a big point because I didn't want us to stray too much into Afghanistan, but I think the mistake that was made even from the beginning of this thing, I do believe that we should have gone into Afghanistan after Bin Laden and company. I do believe that, but we got into this nation building, okay?
Yes.
So this nation building business is where this corruption started, and it just went downhill from there. But I think Joe Biden, at the very least, both Trump and Joe Biden should have made sure that all Americans who were there and all the people who helped us in Afghanistan, we were nation building. We should not be doing that, but we were nation building. All the people who help us, we should have gotten them out before the Taliban took over, because I am certain as I'm sitting here, those people are going to end up dead. Some of our Americans may end up dead before we may get out some, but some of these people are going to end up dead. At least Joe Biden could have made sure that these people get out before the Taliban took full control.
And it should be a lesson to us on nation building, right? I know people always do the same thing. Indeed. They go, well, we did it in Japan and Germany. And here's what people don't understand. Japan and Germany, prior to us invading, were already democracies.
Sure.
They were just broken democracies. Hitler didn't take over Germany in a military coup. His party was elected. They were a democracy. Japan didn't fall apart because of a military coup. They were a democracy. So these countries were already democracies. They were broken democracies who required some rewriting of their constitution. That's true. And so we just rewrote a constitution, but the people were already there. The Afghani people aren't there. They weren't there. How can you force democracy on a culture that simply isn't prepared? It doesn't, in some cases, doesn't even want it. It doesn't make any sense. This is why localism matters and culture matters, and leave people alone, and they will come to their own whenever they want to. When we left Vietnam, they told us, leave Vietnam, the world's going to end. It didn't end. 20 years later, Vietnam was our trading partner. And you might say, well, Vietnam is it a bad example? Why? Because it's a communist? They're the Vietnamese. They do what they want with their country, how they want to do it. And when they're ready to become democratic, they will, whether that's tomorrow or 100 years from now. I'm not Vietnamese. I don't get to choose. The Vietnamese do. And they will become democratic when and how they want to, in whatever way they see fit. But here's the worst part. To your point, Leon, actually, maybe it's to yours, Jace. You're saying, are we going to learn something? I was in the Marine Corps in between Vietnam and the 2000 wars. I was in the 80s, right? Most of my senior leadership when I was in the Marine Corps were Vietnam vets. So did we learn anything? No. All that happened is we had a bunch of small wars to get America okay with fighting again. I was in during that time. Grenada, Panama. Remember those?
Yes.
Right? We did those. Kosovo. We did those little ones. We did the 3-day war in the first Gulf War. That was the first kind of big one. We did those. And then once we were done with the 3-day war, and we were all like, yay, we love Bush. Life is awesome. We're America. America's back. We were ready for war again. And of course, when 2001 came, send the troops in. I think we're going to follow the same. I think we've learned nothing. I think we'll do the same thing over the next 20 years. We're going to do small wars like a proxy war in Libya or Mali or something like that for about 15, 20 years until all of a sudden we're ready for the big one again. And we'll go back into some country and we'll start nation building all over again. I think we've learned nothing. Remember something. We are an empire, and that matters. Countries, if they lose a war, they're devastated. Empires lose a war, so what? You're supposed to be at war. You're an empire. Empires are always at war. We win wars, lose wars, who cares? When Germany lost the war, they weren't an empire. They were a country. They got devastated. We lose a war, so what? We haven't won a war since 1945, yet we're still doing just fine. The Roman Empire, always at war. Mongol Empire, always at war. British Empire, always at war. American Empire, always at war. Empires thrive on war. Countries get crushed.
I see your point. But on a side note, I mean, I think Afghanistan have never been conquered, and if I'm not mistaken,
you're right.
They have fought off the Russians. I think they fought off the British at one time. No,
they fought off Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. They fought off.
Yes, I'm not joking. They fought off Alexander the Great in like the year 300 BC or something. It's like 2,500 years ago. They fought off. They've been fighting since then. They had spears. They were fighting off Alexander the Great. Yeah. They're the reason why Alexander went to India. He went to Afghanistan. They beat him back. He's like, you know what? I'm not going here. He went to India because of Afghanis. Just saying.
Well, I wonder if Alexander left all their swords and shields on the battlefield.
He did. And he didn't even break them or nothing. He left them intact.
Just left that advanced technology.
Yes.
Anyway, as far as learning nothing, that brings me to another story that I wanted to touch on with Larry as well. And that's, maybe one of the reasons why we aren't learning anything is because our public education system is so terrible. In Oregon, they recently had their governor signed a bill suspending math and reading proficiency requirements for high school graduates. Math and reading proficiency. What else are they? I mean, are they going to make sure they're proficient in PE before they leave and give them their stamp of approval? I mean, exactly what is it that they're doing there? It just tears my hair up because I have kids. And I think Larry, you have kids too. I think
do.
And exactly. And you just look and the damage that we're doing to kids with all of this COVID stuff, and just all these rites of passage that they're missing, and then the promise that we supposedly make with this public education system, which I didn't think was working that great in the first place. But then we're literally not even going to hold it to any kind of a standard. It's mind-boggling. You guys have any thoughts on this?
The problem that you have with this again, I could spend 2 hours on this, but I won't. I'll give you some basic overview stuff. The system that's been put in place was at one point a very good system, meaning it was required. It was a system that would help to educate people, which was a good idea. Educating your public was a good idea. And as a first step to getting the culture, getting people to see the value of not just working on a farm, but also learning basic math and reading, writing skills. Not a bad idea. The one-room schoolhouse was a good idea, right? That was a good concept. However, that initial concept was made just to get regular people able to move into cities. That's why it was being done, right? You wanted to have a population that was growing on farms, being able to move into cities and start working. So how do you know that that's made that way? Because our school system was made for an industrial society. If your plan is get all these knuckleheads, I'll steal your title, get all these knuckleheads into factories, what better example except to have them sit in a building in the row and seat that we tell them to, do what they're told for 8 hours, wrote stuff for 8 hours a day. Great. Now go to a factory. Well done. That makes total sense, right? That's what you wanted. The problem is, particularly today, we have an industrial model for a post-industrial world. It doesn't work at all. Our school system is completely broken and should be rebooted from bottom to top. That's a fantasy. It's not going to happen, but it should. It's a problem. We got to start to reform. It isn't just about standards. The concept that you're talking about, removing standards, the concept is not the end of the world conceptually. In practice, it is. But if you were to say, Larry, I don't care about, specialized reading and math skills, I actually don't care. What I care about is our kids are ready to function in the world. The way we measure this is not, I'll bring him in. Who's that, your grandson?
Yes.
Bring him in.
Come here. Focus.
Perfect timing on education.
I love it. Oh, you could have brought him in. All right, it's fine. Next time.
Well, this public ed stuff just scared the heck out of him.
It scared him. He was like, I'm out. He's like, I'm out of here.
Sorry,
I'm not going back to school. I'm out. So yes. But my point here being, I guess, in the long run is how we judge it is by standardized testing. Standardized testing is not a good indicator of success in life and is tied to federal funds. And when it's tied to federal funds, it means it's tied to federal strings. This is why you don't get civics in school. This is why you don't get PE. You don't get PE in many schools. This is why you don't get home ec. You don't get shop classes, because that's not how the money is made. The incentives from the federal and state governments is always two things: standardized testing, which is basically useless, if not harmful, and putting people into college, which is also useless, if not harmful. So the two incentives we have to make our schools better are bad incentives. Not everyone should go to college. College isn't the be all and end all to everything. And we should go to the right colleges that make us happy so we can be happy in life and be successful, not the ones that just happen to be cheap because it makes, I need a college education. That's just 4 more years being told to do, making you a worse citizen. So it's not the best answer. So I could be in it for 2 hours, but what I want is better localized schooling with support for private schools and support for homeschooling. You do that, life is good.
Well, I have a slightly different take on this. I am heavily involved in education, certainly before my retirement. But, the problem is I think this is the soft bigotry of low expectations. This is what is going on here. If you look, and Jason attached an article to us for this particular show. One of the things that is said in the article, one of the officials in Oregon stated that they were doing this to help students of color, Black, Latino, and Latinx. I don't know who the hell that is, and who Asian Pacific and that kind of stuff. These people are doing nothing but making our kids into dumbasses. That's what they're trying to do. The public schools are no damn good anyway. Okay, we need to have school choice. We really do. We need to have school choice. But they're trying to make our kids into dumbasses, and they're just experimenting with our children. That is what they're doing. I don't have school-age children anymore, but you just saw my grandson. He's about to enter school. And I want a good place to send him. I don't want to send him to this place where he's not expected to do well. They expect him to fail, and this is what I hate. They expect him to fail. Well, he's Black, so we need to have a little lower standard so that maybe he could pass, he could get by the lower standard. Why? This is the problem that's going on in our education system right now. We need school choice so that parents can choose where they could send their children, where their children could be educated, where you could make our kids into productive citizens. Let the parents choose that, not these education bureaucrats who are doing nothing but experimenting with our children.
I can't disagree.
Thank you.
Speaking of that, low expectations, we did a show a while back where we talked about the movie Stand and Deliver. I don't know if you ever saw that, Larry, but it's Well, there was a teacher in Los Angeles. His name was Jaime Escalante, and he was coming out of private industry, and he just decided he wanted to teach math as one of the things he wanted to do in life. And he went into a school district, and he wanted to teach calculus, and he thought these kids could learn calculus. The school told him, no, we're just, we don't think you can do it. And eventually he twisted their arm. And a school that had nobody meeting AP and calculus, he eventually got to about 70 kids a year in that school that were going and passing AP calculus.
Exactly.
And the crazy thing was they thought he cheated in the beginning. So they actually made all the kids retake the test again. And the kids smashed it even better the second time. And I mean, it was just the bigotry of low expectations, and that we've set up this terrible system that just complete. I don't know. I just kind of tear my hair out about this public ed thing over and over again.
It really
I
does.
agree.
Yeah, I really fear for my grandson. Jason, I know you have school age kids. Larry, no, I found that you do have school age kids.
I do. I got kids 11 and 17, 2 daughters. Yep.
There you go. I fear for them because I don't know. I mean, every environmental crap they will teach him. They'll teach them. Every social justice crap they will teach them. But what about reading, writing, and arithmetic, which are the things that are essential for them to be functional in life? What about those things?
Yep, I agree. Or I'll go one step further, Leon. In today's world, what about, I'm serious, basic contract law?
Yes.
How about that? Basic contract law.
I'm in total agreement. Total agreement.
Yes. How about how to balance a checkbook?
There we go.
How about that? How about those things, right? How about understanding what APR interest is?
There we go.
How about that? Those are things that they have to deal with. How about knowing what financing is, understanding what it is? They're going to be financing stuff. We all finance stuff, right? How about the difference between rental and ownership? How about that? These are things they're all going to deal with. How about understanding a monthly budget when you get your Hulu or Netflix or your Amazon Prime or whatever you do? How about understanding that? This is of course I want reading and writing, but that's generic. You could actually fix that by 6th grade, to be forward. If you had a decent system, you could be a decent enough reader by 6th grade. The question is, do you have kids who want to read or kids who just want to watch videos all day?
Sure.
If you get kids that want to read, you can set that up literally by 6th grade, maybe 7th or 8th grade. But you could get them to a point where they want to read, which means you know this. If you want to read, you'll be a better reader because you want to do it. So you'll get better at reading. Why would you want to read? Not because it's some novel that some teacher wants, which is not a bad thing, but because you want to figure out how you can afford on your salary to have Hulu and Netflix plus your Steam account and be able to buy stuff and go off and get your cool, avocado toast. You want to know how to do that without having to become bankrupt. And maybe you will also understand how your loan works when you need to go to college to get a $100,000 loan. And you might go, I'm not paying that. Yeah. No, I'd rather not go to college because I'm not going to have this debt over my head that I can't even go bankrupt and get rid of. So maybe I'm not doing that. And if I get that, the prices will go down. Why? Because kids won't go to college. So they'll simply have to lower the prices or kids won't go. But if you don't educate them on those things, they keep going.
Well, it seems like we're clearly running out of time on our kids' education, but unfortunately, we're also running out of time on the show as well.
There we go.
So I unfortunately it has to end. But thank you so much for joining us, Larry. Did you want to give the guests give our audience a
Sharpway.com? If you want to see any of my cool things, please check them out. Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, Sharpway, and all of them. Or LarrySharp.com. If you want to see any of my stuff, again, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the things.
Okay, well, thank you so much, y'all, for joining us. And until the next one, stay free.